Hi, we're Team 48. Our project name is PlayStation with multiplayer Pac-Man. For this project we have devised and assembled a fully portable PlayStation. The launcher that you can see right now starts running when the user plugs the PlayStation in the socket. The launcher's task is very simple. It displays the games that the user can play, it interacts with the user via joystick and lets him select the game he would like to play and then launches that game. It also provides such tasks as menu browsing. Our menu is quite simple and has just 3 states, which can be seen on the top. If the user selects the first menu option, then the Wi-Fi connection status is displayed. If he selects the second menu option, then he enters the game select state. And the last option shows the interactive image of the person who has inspired us to do this project. But what about the games? So, we have implemented an online 3D Pac-Man game and made it available through the launcher. The user just needs to select the Pac-Man icon using joystick's button and then enjoy the gameplay. For the input we're using Arduino analog joystick, but with this joystick a small issue arises. We're using Raspberry Pi 4 and the issue is that it doesn't have any analog pins. So using MCP3008 was our way out, since it converts the analog signal of the joystick to the form of the digital signals which Raspberry understands. For the output we have used a TFT display. Also, TFT HDMI decoder came in handy as a connector between the display and Raspberry. Each Raspberry Pi communicates to each other using onboard wireless networking. Thus, each online game will play the role of a client which will connect to a remote server, which will in turn handle the gameplay and send the required data back. This is the case of Pac-Man. All aspects of the project, like hardware wiring and communication, design of the PlayStation, game launcher, online 3D Pac-Man and server, were devised and implemented by us. Using Raspberry Pi connected to the display via HDMI decoder and using joystick connected to Raspberry Pi via MCP3008 actually worked. Raspberry gave us the flexibility to create any software that we want as well as the wireless connection. Thus we have managed to implement the launcher in an online game. We have spent almost 70% of the time trying different hardware components and looking at how they fit together for our task and fixing endless bugs. We started off by using an Arduino Uno and RA driver board as a display controller. Despite the fact that they were very easy to connect and set up, they didn't provide us with enough functionality to bring our project ideas to life. Here are the few drawbacks of those components. Using Arduino to create an online game which should work at 60 FPS is pretty much impossible, since it doesn't support multithreading. In our case, we would need to send the network data, get the network data, and do the game rendering in one thread. Take into account that some network input-output functions are thread blocking and by convention should be used in a separate thread. As we revealed earlier, driver board provides an extremely narrow set of functions for rendering and doesn't support frame buffers. As a result, it's not intended for making nicely looking game graphics, but rather for displaying simple static shapes and text. For the communication we have tried to use ASP Wi-Fi module, but we didn't find any well-written libraries for it which are compatible with Arduino, so we needed to write the code for it from scratch. After doing some programming, we have noticed that it doesn't work as expected. We had the data lost very often and the reading buffer was quite small, and therefore if we receive a lot of data then it just truncated. Then we have decided to use a more powerful microcontroller, Orange Pi. But we have spent 2 days trying to connect it to the display, and as a result all our efforts were unsuccessful. So we considered a Raspberry Pi microcontroller. It was very difficult to set it up, but eventually we did it. In the description of Raspberry Pi we have read that it supports OpenGL. It was very great news, since OpenGL is a very powerful API for rendering. To support it we have acquired a TFT HDMI decoder mentioned earlier. Also, setting up OpenGL was not a piece of cake, since Raspberry Pi doesn't support modern versions of OpenGL shading language. So, after unsuccessful attempts to update it, we have decided to rewrite our shaders to the older versions and link them to the OpenGL application. And finally, we saw a 3D Pac-Man appearing on the PlayStation screen. To sum it up, doing this project was extremely interesting and gave us a lot of experience with hardware development as well as with software development. In the future we will extend the project by adding more games to the launcher and releasing new versions for existing games. For now, that is it. Thank you for watching.